Is 7 o'clock, which means it's time for, well, how about that? Guess what that means? It is 7 o'clock, which means it's time for Toolbox Tuesday, our weekly webinar series where we help put tools in your toolbox to help you pound out problems and sharpen your saw. So I know what you're thinking. You've been promoting the new Pathways system, and you've got all these new members. And what do? How do you get them engaged? How do you get them rolling right away? And fortunately, we have the solution for you here today. Our presenter, Mike Overland, is our District 106 Club Coach Chair. He's a member of TikTokers, and that's a club in District 106. And as Vice President of TikTokers, Michael developed and helped put this program together for new member orientation, along with the members of his club. Today, he's going to share it with us. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Mike Overland. Mike, take us away.
Thanks very much, Dave. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It is my pleasure. I have been looking forward to presenting this topic for a while now. New member orientation, something that I feel is underutilized, but a very important tool. And so we're going to get right into it here. I will share my screen. And that is not what we want. All right, can everybody see the slides here? Getting a thumbs up from Dave. Orientation is about engaging your new members, and Dave mentioned Pathways. I think that if your club isn't using an orientation program, especially with Pathways, it's such a valuable tool that you can now take advantage of. So a roadmap for tonight, we're going to talk about why you would want to have an orientation program, how to fit it into your club and the new member experience, and then what actually goes into an orientation program. What do you want to tell them? How big of a deal is it? How long does it last? And what materials? What are the important points? What I'd like to do, let's do this poll here. Dave, did you want to run that for me? I'd like to ask our attendees if their club, does your club have an orientation program already? All right, I'm going to end the polling. Looks like we got everybody. And the results were that nobody does, which isn't a surprise to me. Very few clubs I have been to have an orientation program. So let's go ahead and get started here. And my goal today is that at the end of this presentation, you're going to know how to start an orientation program, and you're just going to be dying to go back to your club and do it, put it into action. So let's get started. Why orientation? And Dave, do you want to start that other poll question? Well, we're going to try this while I'm talking about this next slide. Have you ever had a member join your club before, and before they've completed their CC manual or a level on Pathways, they've left the club? Maybe before they've even given a speech, before they've given their icebreaker, they've stopped showing up to the club? Have you ever had a member that left your club before they even took on a role, before they even attended a meeting and took on a role as a timer or an odd counter? Because I'll tell you that I have seen that. And it looks like from our poll, we've got some that have and some that haven't. If you haven't, that's great. But I think it's a very common thing to happen, is that members just join up and then they don't know what to do. They get lost. They just never participate in a meeting. And it's unfortunate. Now, sometimes there's real world things, of course, that come up. People move away. We actually had this happen to somebody. He signed up first time he visited, never saw him again. 3 months, 4 months later, he walks in the door. Hey, welcome back. What's going on? He's like, well, I got a job in Boston, contract for 4 months, and now I'm back. That kind of stuff happens, but hopefully the other situation, which is that people just don't know what to do, we want to minimize that. The orientation program helps to do that. So why do people leave before they complete a CC, before they give a speech, before they take a role? Yeah, sometimes they're real world things, but usually they've got the time in their schedule if they came, visited, and signed up. Usually it's because they weren't sure where to go. They didn't feel comfortable. So why orientation? We want to increase that comfort level. If they're comfortable with the club, if they don't feel like it's some clique that they're not a part of, then they'll engage with the club and with the educational program. If they understand, if they're comfortable with the program, they'll engage with it. If they engage with it, they'll be active and they'll have high level performance, or they'll get better. They'll speak. They'll get results. We've all experienced those results in Toastmasters. That's why we're here. That's why we're trying to share it with others, because we believe in it and we've seen the results it can bring. Well, if they get those results, if they see that increased performance, they're going to be satisfied, happy with your club. They're going to stick around. They're going to be in your spot later. And so the orientation is just the first step on this journey for them to make sure that they get comfortable and they can engage with your club, with the educational program. I want to tell you a little story about why I started an orientation program with my home club. I joined TikTokers in January of 2016. And on this slide, you can see some of our numbers for the year that ended in 2015 and then the year that ended this summer 2016. Obviously, we were a high member club already. We had a few people completing awards. We did achieve President's Distinguished status. But I remember having a conversation after I was elected as a Vice President of Education. And somebody who was active in the district came up to me and said, you know, this is kind of crazy. We have this gigantic club. We have 40 members. If I hadn't worked my butt off to get 3 awards, we might not have even been distinguished. And just having that many members and people, they were having a good time, but they weren't engaged with the educational program. And I found as I went to meetings that I read the manuals and felt like I knew what the program was about. I was amazed how many people did not, and they just didn't know what was going on. So we implemented this orientation program. What happened was actually, after I talked to the VPE, we ran a Moments of Truth survey, and that was the first time I even came across the idea of a membership orientation. And as I was looking at it, it says, we don't do this. We don't discuss the educational programs and recognition system. We don't assess learning needs. And so we don't orient new members. And so this is actually where I got the idea. One of the reasons I love Moments of Truth is because I had this profound experience of finding this and other things that my club didn't do that we could do to make it better. So we implemented this orientation program in the fall of 2016. The next year and a half, 2 years, these are our numbers. You can see our membership still very high, but similar. But you can see that our award totals went way up. We went from having 2 competent communicators in a year. We had 5 the first year. We had 9 this past year. We had 2 advanced communicators first year. We had 4 this past year, as people have moved up past their CCs and now moved on to doing the advanced communicator bronzes. We had 6 people each year completing leadership awards. And another thing you'll notice is the unique column. That's the number of different people that got awards in our club. We went from having just 4 of those 35, 40 members participating in the educational program to the extent that they got awards, to now we have 12, 11 members that are actually getting awards each year, different members. And so we have some members that are getting multiple awards, but this is not a case where one person got all 13 of those awards in 2016, 2017. And by the way, I'm happy to say that these numbers in red were all the highest numbers in the district at those years. So we had the largest club at the end of the year. We had more CCs last year than any other club. We had more total awards than any other club. And in both of the past 2 years, we've had more unique members, more members that got awards than any other club. I'm very proud of that, and I feel the orientation program is a big part of that. It's obviously not the only thing, but it's a big part of getting members started. They get on that path, they get engaged with the program, now they can achieve. Now they know what to do, they set their goals, and they go for them. So that's my sales job for why you want to have an orientation program. And I want to show you kind of how it fits and how I envision the process of a new member experience. It starts for someone when they visit your club as a guest. They like your club, they join as a new member. And in most clubs, we talked about, most clubs don't have any sort of orientation program. Hopefully you have some sort of mentor program, they become a protege. They work with somebody. If they do that, they go through the program, eventually they'll become a competent communicator, competent leader. They'll feel, when I say competent here, what I'm really talking about more than the manuals is that they can show up to meetings every week, they know what's going on. They feel like they understand the program and your club and how it runs. Once they've gotten to that point, then maybe they can move on to being a leader. But for me, that's a big gap right there between becoming a new member and becoming a protege. And it's very easy to lose a lot of members in that gap. If you are assigning mentors immediately, you can cover some of this material with them. But in my experience, clubs either don't have mentor programs or it takes a while to get a mentor assigned. And if you do get a mentor assigned, they're often of varying quality and commitment. And so it's so important to get that new member the basic information. And so this is how it fits to me. The orientation is the bridge for a new member to get into the mentor program. And that pushes them further down this line to the point that they're going to eventually become a club leader. How does this work? I can tell you that when I joined TikTokers that first year, we were scrambling to find officers, as I think most clubs do. A lot of clubs that I've seen, it gets to be May, and people are like, well, who's going to do what? Well, I did president this year. I can't do that again. You have to do president this year. I was vice president of membership. I guess I'll do that again, or I guess I'll be treasurer again for the 10th year in a row. TikTokers this year, instead of having to fight to find people to fill roles, we actually ended up with 11 officers. We had several roles that had double positions. There are more people that wanted to do it. We had a very competitive four-way race for a vice president of membership position. And so in my mind, that is these members getting engaged in the program. And it started with that orientation, started with they understood, they felt comfortable. Then it goes to the mentor program. Then they became comfortable with the club, and then they were ready to step up as leaders. So that's how I see it fitting in the program. And again, why you need it. When should it happen? As soon as possible after joining. The point is not to lose somebody because they don't know what to do. You're joining an organization that, if you're a guest new member, you have been to 1, 2, 3 meetings. You don't really know how it works. You've never signed up for a role. You've never given a speech. And you sign up and you feel like something should happen. If no one's there to tell them right away what should happen, they're going to easily disengage. And so as soon as possible after they join, the person giving the orientation session should step in and say, let's do this. Let's set this up next week, after the meeting today, as soon as possible. Again, it's a bridge faster than you can get a mentor. If you have to find out who's available, it's going to take a couple weeks. Don't wait that long. They'll be gone by the time you get there if they're not the kind of person who's just going to do it on their own. So we've gone through why you should do it, where it fits. I want to talk about what to include. And what to include is pretty simple. You basically want to get a few main goals taken care of. You want to figure out, what are they looking for? It's so important to understand the member needs with any new member. You don't want to, if possible, you don't want your club to be a one-size-fits-all experience. You want to give everyone what they're looking for as much as you can within the mission of your club. And if they don't fit, there are other clubs that might fit better. But if somebody's looking to give speeches, you want to make sure, yeah, we're getting them signed up all the time to give speeches. If someone's just looking to get confidence and they're not ready yet to step up in front of people, it's a big deal for them to do table topics. It's a big deal for them to serve as a timer. Make sure you know that. You want to make them comfortable. And when I say make them comfortable, I mean make them feel like they know what's going on. That, it's just kind of similar to the idea of giving a guest a really nice agenda. If you do that, they'll be able to look at it and say, here's what's going to happen next. Here's what's going to happen next. And they'll be able to anticipate what's going to happen in a meeting. If a member doesn't know how the program runs, they aren't going to be able to find this and determine the steps they need to take to accomplish the goals that they want to accomplish. So it's very important that you make them comfortable in understanding that they can do everything that they need to, that they know what they need to do, and that you'll be there with resources and everything to help them and support them along the way. They have to know the next steps in particular. That's actually probably the most important part, the next steps, and those are the calls to action. I'll get into those in a little bit. It's also nice if you can make them feel excited about what you're doing. They just joined the club. They're probably a little excited. Let them know that they're going to have some great benefits coming from this experience. Make sure they're excited to move forward. What we're not trying to do is go through an orientation session in 15 or 20 minutes and make them an expert about everything Toastmasters. We're not trying to make them the greatest speaker in the world. That is well beyond the scope of the orientation program. You just want to get that initial little drip that pulls them along to the next step, again, to that mentor protege phase where now they have a specific member they're working with when they have questions. You just kind of give them an overview of everything they're going through. Let's actually take a look at this. I've got what to include, and I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to show you the TikTokers manual. So this is the TikTokers manual, the current version. There's going to be a link to download this at the end here, and you can use it as much as you want as a source, edit it. But you can see right on the front, we talk about what we're going to go over. And in that orientation session, which is a 15, 20-minute session, maybe a bit longer if they have a bunch of questions, we just cover very simple things. What are meetings like? If they've already been to several as a guest, we're not going to drill that in too hard. How do they sign up for roles? I am a member of another club, Remarkables, where members do not sign up for roles. The Vice President of Education signs members up. In that case, that section is different. It tells them how they get signed up for roles and what their responsibilities are when they're signed up for a role, to let us know if they can't make it, if they can't give a speech, if they are giving a speech, what do they have to do? We go briefly over pathways here. The pathways learning experience. Let me zoom in so people can see more clearly. So meeting details, how to sign up for roles or how roles are assigned. Go over pathways very briefly. Club goals, which is the DCP program. I know I've heard of many club presidents and club vice presidents of education that have never heard of the Distinguished Club program when they start their term. That, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the motivations for getting this out, is that I wanted everybody in our club to at least have heard of this stuff so they have some idea of what we're talking about. And then the mentorship program at the end. The mentorship program, an equally important part of this new member experience. The orientation program needs to include a bit about that and be that bridge, as I talked about earlier. Now the manual you'll see here is about 20 pages long. So it's quite in depth. Let's start from the beginning. And like here, at an orientation session, I don't go through everything in the manual. It's not as if we're going to read through the entire manual. This is a resource for your member to go back to. And it's also an outline for that orientation session so that you know what we need to cover. You have some visual aids included so that when you're talking about using the website, they can see what you're actually talking about, but you don't read through the entire thing. As I mentioned before, the first part, talking about the meetings. When do we meet? When should they arrive? What should they bring? Could be what should they wear. Some clubs, if you have a dress code, people want to know that sort of stuff. Anything like that helps people know I'm doing the right thing before I go to a meeting. We talk about right here how to sign up for a role, and there are directions in the manual, clear step-by-step images that go through and show them how to sign up on our free Toast Host website. Again, this is different from my other club. We don't have the same instructions because they don't sign up for roles. We have the bit on filling out the speech information, but they don't need to know about signing up as the invocation master or Toastmaster for the meeting. Show them an example of the agenda, more on using the meeting agenda. And that's kind of, spend just a few minutes going through those initial steps for them. How do I use the website? How do I get signed up for roles? Then we move on to the educational program. Give a brief overview of the Pathways program so that they can see where they're starting and all the different opportunities available way down the line. We don't want to get into all the details. They don't need to know exactly how Speechcraft works. But they can come back to this later and be like, oh yeah, I heard about that. There was some other Speechcraft thing. There was some club coach thing. And when they're ready, when they've moved on, they can get more information, but they've heard of it so that they're not completely confused when you start talking about it in your club, when somebody comes to visit, when they become an officer for the first time, those sorts of things. But the key things we have here are the immediate directions. How do they choose their first path? How do they get logged into the Toastmasters website, go take the assessment and choose a path, step-by-step directions. And again, during the actual orientation session, not reading through all of this word for word, letting them know this is where the directions are. You can go back here and see these directions on your own, but this is the basic process. Showing them kind of the very broadest outline of what a project looks like in the new Pathways program, how they navigate it, how they complete their projects and their levels, so they can see the entire journey from just starting out as a brand new member, I've never done anything, to now I'm finishing levels. Now I'm finishing projects, now I'm finishing levels, moving on to the next level. And that's about as far as they need to know right away. That's going to take them through maybe 3 or 4 months if they're active. Finishing paths is going to take much longer. You don't need to go into the details on that. But again, we've given them that basic information, the outline, so that they know there's more as well. But this just gets them started. And we have a little section going over some of the opportunities they have. And also the Distinguished Club program, how what they're doing helps the club. You'll notice here, if I zoom in, that for TikTokers, we have this little note here that TikTokers is a very active club and consistently aims to meet all the DCP goals each year. My other club does not have that little note. Your club might be in a different situation. The important part for this is letting the new member know that as they progress, they're helping the club. And the club is thankful for that, appreciative of that. They know how it fits in. It also helps them kind of schedule things as well. If you can say, well, you might want to complete 2 levels in a year or 3 levels in a year, depending on how active the person is. Go back to their member needs. Helps them set goals. Let's see. One of the last bits, we talk about the mentor program. The mentor program will be different for each club, but it's very important that we very briefly go over it because it's one of the key call to actions. We need to get them a mentor if we want them to be successful in our club. And then it moves on to action steps. So I'm going to go back to the slides now because that's most of the manual. And we talked about all these things, right? The roles, the educational program, the DCP, mentor program, and now the call to action. There are three main things that I want you to include in your mentor program no matter what you do. You want to get them signed up for roles. They need to start being active in the club. As a timer, an counter, make sure they are going to get signed up for in the near future. Once they're signed up, they're going to go to that meeting, they're going to take on that role. It's going to become normal to be a part of that meeting. Sign them up for the icebreaker. It's so easy if no one asks them to just put it off and put it off and put it off. This is the perfect time to put it out there that, hey, you just signed up. You signed up probably because you want to give speeches. Let's get you ready to go for that first speech. Depending on the availability in your club, maybe it's next week, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month, but get a date on the calendar and make sure they're comfortable with it. If they feel like, I could not possibly give my icebreaker next week, I need more time, that's fine, but get something on the calendar. Once they have it there, they will do it almost every time. If they don't have it on the calendar, it's just going to get pushed off. We all know how that works. And finally, getting a mentor. If you get these three things done in a 15 to 20 minute orientation session, along with giving just a very brief overview of the whole thing, you're going to have a member who's light years ahead of somebody that has not gone through this. Because the normal new member experience is I show up 1 week, I show up the next week, I show up the next week, and I'm trying to figure things out, until you get a mentor or somebody that's stepping in to help you. You have somebody in your club that kind of realizes, oh, this has to get done. Having a real orientation program makes it official, makes it normal, makes it codified. And now, I mentioned I started this in TikTokers just over 2 years ago, in 2016, in the fall of 2016. We have now we're on to our fourth different person that's presenting the orientation program. I did it as a vice president of education. The vice president of education did it the next year, the new vice president of education. Our new vice president of education did it this fall, and now the club has decided that the vice president of membership should take over this particular position. Who in particular does it isn't super important, just that it gets done. And if it does, I think you'll find that your new members get a lot more satisfaction from their experience. They'll feel much more comfortable, and they're really going to participate, have a good time, and get something out of it. I've got a link to where you can pick up these two orientation manuals, and then I believe Dave, I'm going to email him copies as well so that he could post them on the D106 site. But I put it in this folder, d6pathways.org/orientation. It just looks like this. And you can get the Word version if you'd like to use it to edit. There's also a PDF version if that's easier for you, if you just want to take a look at it. Let's see where I am.
Hey, Mike, we will get that up on a D106 website.
Yep. I assume it'll be right next to the recording and everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be great. It'll be right next to the recording. But for now, you can look at it here. So kind of to wrap up, we talked about why to have an orientation program, how it helps your members have a better experience. Let me tell you, when your new members are active, everybody in your club gets excited and benefits from that. Because I have seen so many times that the older members, they've accomplished a lot of what they want to do. They like working with new members. They like seeing new people come in and get something out of it. They feel like they're giving back. So just such a benefit for the new members and for every member of your club. Again, I go back and look at the numbers for for our club, I think a big part of that is the orientation program and the engagement it represents between the club and the new member. We talked about how to present it, and we talked about what to include in that presentation. So I think we've got one more poll question here, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. And the question is, are you ready to introduce an orientation program to your club? After this, are you going to go back, talk to your club officers, say, you know what, we've got to start doing this? At the beginning, everybody said their club did not have an orientation program. So let me know if you're ready or not. And it's okay to vote no, because we got a Q&A session after this. It'll give me a chance to answer any questions if you're not ready. I've got 2 yeses. I'm missing some. Not everybody got to vote, but thank you. I'm glad that people feel that way. I hope this has been helpful, and I think we should open it up for questions because you might have some. I've given orientation sessions a number of times, and I may have skipped over things that you want to know about. So please go ahead and open it up, Dave, if you would.
All right. If you've got questions, feel free to either raise your hand and we can unmute you, or if you prefer, you can type your questions into using the Q&A button.
Oh, this is one of those I did a great job experiences.
That certainly could be the case. That's certainly, but yeah. Don't miss out. We've got Mike here. He can answer if you've got something that you want to ask about. Definitely.
Yeah, feel free to ask. And I really do feel like I feel very strongly about this, about the orientation program. If you or your club wants to start one and you have any questions, if you'd like help getting the program organized, I'm happy to answer questions anytime and to assist with that. It's really something that I feel made a huge difference for us. And it's one of the things I've been so eager to share with other Toastmasters because it's so simple too. And you're talking about a 20-minute meeting before the regular meeting. And if, depending on how many new members you have, you're doing this 8 times a year. I know we sometimes get to double up with new members and make it even more efficient. But I've always had nothing but positive responses from members after seeing this. And they've expressed that they kind of feel like their eyes have been opened. Okay, now I kind of get.
So, Mike, when you first started this, or when you first came up with this idea, did you have any resistance from your club? Did they say, no, that's not how we do things? Was there anything like that, or did you have to overcome anything, or was it pretty self-evident that this was something that needed to happen?
People were pretty eager about it. Now, the thing is that nobody else was jumping up to, I want to do this. And so it was kind of on me to say, no, this is a goal this is something I'd like to develop. And there were concerns in the sense of, especially with TikTokers, we've averaged about 20 new members a year for the past several years. And there was concern like, oh man, aren't you going to get, that's going to eat up a ton of time. Aren't you going to get burned out? It really wasn't too bad. And especially, doing the orientation sessions was a lot less of a time commitment than being the sergeant at arms, which I am now, in terms of the setup that goes on for our club, as we have quite a bit of that. And so I have to be there an hour before each meeting, and it takes about a half an hour to an hour to take things down with our group.
Sure.
Versus the orientation session was so easy, just 20 minutes beforehand.
Hey, we do have a question here. It came in. It says pathways appears very complicated when looking at what's available. Where is a good place to start?
I have my own favorite place, but I'm going to say first of all, in the context of an orientation session, I urge you not to go to your new member and say, you start talking about, remember, we've showed a bit of the pathways information in the manual. I urge you not to go to them and say, well, here's pathways. It's really complicated. It's going to take you a long time to understand this, because that's going to just put another barrier in their way. And I have to say that I don't think it's actually very complicated. There are a few things that are less than ideal, and I know there's actually something that went out recently from Toastmasters that they're working on simplifying it. But that being said, there are a few videos that I recommend. Let me share my screen again.
Okay. While you're pulling that up, I want to emphasize on what Michael said. If you think back to when you first started at Toastmasters, the legacy education program was pretty complicated too. When you think about what it took to be an advanced leader bronze or advanced leader silver, like there was a lot of interaction. That's not something that a new member in their orientation needs to know. Really, you're getting them started on a little bit of what Pathways is and get them through the icebreaker and choosing their path.
Exactly. Yes, thank you, Dave. That's exactly right. And this manual was originally developed before the Pathways program, so it was developed with the old educational program. And it had just that in mind, that, again, you have those calls to action. Get your first speech in. Yes, there's a little bit there on, here's an overview of the broader educational program so that you know it exists. But what we really want to focus on is, can you get signed up for a path? Can you start the icebreaker? Once you've done that, you're going to get the rest of it. If you don't know how to do that, you just won't get started at all. So now, if you can see my screen here, I am on, again, this d6pathways.org site, and I am in the Get Started section. These are some of my favorite videos on getting started in Pathways. They're all short. They're about 3 minutes each. There are 6 of them, I think, now. It goes from the first step, which is logging in to the Toastmasters.org site. And some people get very confused. Oh, I have a club site and a Toastmasters site, and they're different. So, people don't need this. They can skip it. But some people do need it. There it is. It takes them through taking the assessment, the entire thing. It takes them through choosing their path after they've taken the assessment, whether they're choosing one of their recommended paths or another one. The 4th video, it tells them then how to access their path. Once they've chosen the path, how do they get into their educational transcript? How to print their project. And this is, so the 4th one here is how to actually access the icebreaker, right? So they've signed up for a path. Now, how do you get to the icebreaker and do your first project? The 5th one, a lot of people want to be able to print their projects. And then I had a lot of people giving feedback that they didn't know how to close out projects. So we've added this as this is the bonus we found, completing a project. And this website, maybe I'll type it into chat if I can, or if I can figure it out. So I typed that into chat. That's open to anyone. It's just a collection of other people's videos that I have found that are short, to the point, and I believe effective. So in about 15 minutes, I think anybody can watch these videos and they'll know what to do in Pathways. So that's where I would say to get started. But again, don't present it to somebody as they have to know everything right away. They have to understand the entire structure. It's complicated. All they have to do is get signed in and get to that icebreaker. That's all they have to do. Any other questions? I invite people to contact me, mike.overland@gmail.com, if you have questions about this later. If you're watching this 2 years from now and you have questions about orientation programs, feel free to reach out to me. I'll still be using that email address, and I'll be happy to talk about it.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. This has been informative. I am thrilled that this will get out to some more people. We will be recording this. It'll be posted up on our site and on the D106 YouTube site as well. We'll work to get some of that information also transferred over, or we'll put links up so that you can get to that page that Michael was referring to. And if you've got questions, reach out to Mike, or if you forget that email, reach out to me, and we'll be sure to help support you in this. Hey, everyone, I want to thank you for making a commitment. You can share this video with any of your club members, so invite them to come out and rewatch it. You can rewatch it as many times as you like. And next week, we're going to be talking about the Vice President Education, which is a pretty key role as well. So I'm hoping that we'll have a big group for that. Mike, thank you again for presenting. Thank you all for coming out. This has been Toolbox Tuesday, and we'll see you next week.